My name is Todd Steel. I'm the Senior Product Manager here at SafeNet Technologies. And today I'll be covering the session for ISVs leveraging your SAP investment while you transition your services to the cloud. So, of course, our disclaimer here is that everything of this presentation was built by me, Todd Steel, as part of SafeNet, and not all the opinions expressed here are mine and not SAP. So the agenda of what I would like to cover today is first just a real quick review of why are people moving to the cloud, what is this cloud, what are the advantages and benefits of the cloud for delivering applications and services, and then what are the challenges as you move your product portfolio to the cloud. How do you leverage your SAP implementation? Leverage the existing value SAP is bringing to you for delivering your services and monetizing those services as cloud-delivered applications. And then exploring how licensing for the cloud works and how it benefits you as you move your services to the cloud. And then we'll be finishing up with a live Q&A session for any questions participants may have. So just to get started real quickly, who is SafeNet? SafeNet's a company that was founded in 1983. We've been around almost 30 years now. We're privately owned with revenues about $500 million. We're the largest provider of licensing technology in the world today, and we are serving and have been introducing over the last year a service called Sentinel Cloud, which allows software vendors or software publishers to monetize their solutions as they take those solutions to cloud-delivered models. Just a real quick snapshot so you understand, we're not a startup company, we're not a small company, we're a global leader in licensing solutions. We have over 15,000 global customers. So moving along, really the market today is getting more and more cloudy. A few years ago, I think as software publishers in the software industry, only early adopters of cloud technologies were really taking advantage as cloud delivery model. But as every analyst who's following the software market is reporting, that it is year by year getting cloudier and cloudier. More and more money is being spent on cloud services. So this next slide here, is a slide from Sagatech Technologies, an analyst covering cloud-delivered services. So this slide is just a real nice snapshot of the growth in cloud services and money, IT dollars, that are being spent on cloud-based solutions versus on-premise installed-based solutions. So you can see in 2010, it was a 30-70 split. In 2012, really looking at a 40-60 split, with 40 being cloud-based. And then by 2014, and just around the corner now, the IT spending for cloud-based services will be as much for cloud-based delivered solutions as they will be for their installed on-premise counterparts. I think it's an interesting slide. The next slide is again from Sagatech, really looking at the business benefits of consuming cloud-based services from the end users, from the IT perspective. Why are they consuming services, and what is the advantage of those services? So really, there's two of the top main goals of IT departments that are consuming these services. The first main goal is cost savings. So cost savings from a perspective of how do I reduce my costs by purchasing only the value that the software provider or the software application is providing to myself. And how do I not have that large upfront investment for perpetual license, right? Consuming services-based reduces the overall cost by allowing a software provider to pay annually a reduced cost rather than a lump sum perpetual deal. And the third one is really how do I reduce my cost by not having to pay resources to manage the application or service, both from a hardware perspective and from a IT personnel perspective, having to manage and configure and install and support that service over time. The second real benefit and a second objective of those departments or those companies that are purchasing software as a service over the installed on-premise type of delivered solution is really looking at agility and quality of the service. Really, how do I evaluate that product more easily? How do I move from the evaluation product more easily without having to find hardware and IT resources? And how do I upgrade my service or try to evaluate new products or new offerings or new features of the existing service, really without having to come in and downgrade my service or take my service offline? Instead, I want to click a button and instantly have new functionality, new services. So what are some of the benefits to the software vendors? So we just looked at the benefits to the consumers of the applications, but what are some of the benefits for the ISVs who are providing this service? The first is really, this is the growth market, right? Cloud-based services are the growth market for vendors. More and more money each year is being spent on service-based offerings rather than the installed, delivered on-premise services. And as we saw in the first slide, by the year 2014, it'll be a 50-50 split on payments being spent on cloud-based services. Also, the next one is that companies like SafeNet, right, that are looking for high valuation in the global markets, those companies that have service-based offerings are being valuated much higher than those who have just traditional on-premise software. This has a couple of reasons. One of the reasons is the next bullet, that moving towards service-based delivery, you're onboarding your customers with a recurring revenue stream. You're doing subscription-based billing rather than these lump sum type of perpetual software deals. So this recurring revenue stream makes you more predictable, makes your business more predictable, and smooths out your revenue. Also, the fourth one is you are you really gain a more intimacy with your customers in a service-based model. You are closer, you're online with them, you are in a connected system. You have the ability to see what they're using, when they're using it, who's using it, how are they using it, right? This intimacy allows you to better manage your offering and improve your offering by really coming to market with those things that your customers are using and really de-emphasizing or defocusing your development on those features and aspects that they're not using. And lastly, really one of the big benefits of coming to market with a service-based offering is the ability to have quicker customer evaluation and adoption. So instead of having to come on-site and install, configure, and find a box for evaluating a product, delivering it as a service allows you to really deploy just a username, password, and URL to your customers and allow them to evaluate and start using the service almost instantly. So what are some of the challenges that are really are surrounding managing those cloud contracts as you move to a service-based delivery? So here at SafeNet, we're a licensing company, and we, as I mentioned, we talk to on average about 15,000 customers a year. So we really boil these things down to 6 main challenges that are facing really monetizing and controlling your application as you deliver it as a service. The first one is that the enforcing contract compliance can be costly. And when we talk about cost here, we're not really talking about a technology cost. We're really talking about a relationship cost. Many service providers who go to the cloud are moving to the cloud with a trust model with just paper contracts. And what that lends itself to is that those software providers who are publishing services then do an audit a year or 2 later just to see which customers are within their contract limits. And invariably, the majority of their customers are outside their contract limits. Not because they want to be outside their contract limits, but because the technology or the product itself didn't enforce them or control them to their limits. Well, this puts a relationship strain on the software publisher and the customer, because now that software publisher goes back to the customer, the resource who's purchasing the software, and you have to have a very awkward conversation. You have to tell them that they have to budget for the next year for more dollars spent on the service than the year prior. And it makes that purchaser have to go to their boss, their management, to try to get more budget for the same level of service. Everyone looks very poorly in this relationship. The relationship between the ISV vendor and the purchaser becomes strained, and the purchaser, their management looks bad internal to their company. So instead, having an application and licensing that can help control the user to their limits and display what those limits are ahead of place is a much more proactive place to be. The second top challenge is really having a product catalog that has limited feature building, meaning that you want to be able to offer packages that offer the value, distinct, specific value for the markets that you're going. So being able to have small packages, medium packages, large packages, being able to bundle your products in the varying different ways that make sense so that you can maximize the value of your application for your customers without having to re-engineer that application for each package. Which leads us to this next bullet, which is when you want to make changes to your packaging, you don't want to have to go back and re-engineer or recreate a new package or a new delivery of your software itself. Instead, you want to be able to deliver your software as one application, as one configuration of your application, and really let the licensing control who has access to that. Well, by building in a platform that allows you to package your software in many different ways, whenever you want to package your software, say I want to now package feature A and B together and maybe now B and C together, you can make those changes without having to go back to the engineers, without having to go back and start an R&D project and be able to come to market very quickly with a new package and let the licensing drive the features and controls. The fourth real challenge facing moving to the market is really having a restricted simple subscription business models available to you. As you move to the market, as I discussed the benefits to end customers, getting to the cloud, they want to consume only what is valuable to them at a business model that makes sense to how they want to pay. So really having a very complex or sophisticated building blocks of license models really allows you to sell your application in any which way that you want. So a popular example I like to give here is we work with a lot of customers in the education market. In the education market, they're making software for training programs. Well, when selling that software to the U.S. education market, which is only open 9 months out of the year, right? You want to be able to create a license model that is only valid for a 9-month subscription term. But selling that very same software, the very same feature set to, let's say, the U.S. federal government for military training programs. Well, those training programs are a year-round training program. So they want a 12-month subscription. So different subscriptions, different ways to consume the application, even though it's the same application. The fifth challenge really is that usage tracking and reporting is available in the service-based world, but it's really tailored. It's not tailored for, one, creating an invoice on features being used, and two, really having the tools to aggregate that and report on that data for bettering your product offering over time. So understanding what your most popular features that your customers are using and the least popular features really help you as product managers or as business owners to direct your R&D investment into those things that your customers find valuable and use very frequently versus those features that aren't so widely used. The last challenge here is really when you adopt service-based delivery, you want to do so in a method that you don't create a new way to do business. You want to be able to manage your on-premise installed delivered application the same way that you fulfill, manage, and measure your service-based delivery, right? You don't want to create two different systems, two different ways that you track and fulfill and operationalize how you're doing in delivering your services and software. So really I want to talk about how SAP and ERP integration with a licensing system really works, and how you can leverage the value of your existing SAP and move to the cloud, move your delivery to the cloud. So there's three main areas of improvements required to start really delivering services. The first is how do I deliver and introduce new business models, right? Things like freemium, feature limited, usage-based business models. The second is automating the provisioning, ordering, and upsell of my services. And the third is how do I really add services to my product portfolio and yet still have a single interface and system to manage my on-premise installed software as well as managing my cloud-delivered solutions. So these are really the three topics I'm going to explore. So the first is really introducing new business models. So as I discussed in the benefits of cloud section earlier, driving down costs is really one of the main objectives for the trend to adopt cloud-based service solutions. So from my experience, helping ISVs making the transition to service delivery, the first place to really start is reviewing how you offer your service to be consumed. Well, as service providers, the objective is not to really decrease the cost of the product, but to align the way you sell it to the value your customers are getting from the system. One of the core benefits of a software as a service is really that you can monetize your solution in many different ways. I really see the first step by exploring three popular business models. The first is the freemium model, right? This is the model is used when the goal is customer adoption and getting market share. You need to get the core value of your offering in the hands of your customers with really no barrier of entry. So this means giving it away for free, of course. Either the first several months for free or maybe a free version with limited functionality, limited users, or maybe limited usage, right? These are all kind of examples of the freemium. So why use freemium? Well, we recommend to use this model when the value of your offering is derived from some collaborative capabilities. Or in other words, really where the larger the user base, the more value is derived by each individual user of the application. So freemium is also a good choice, though, when there's a substantial increase in value to the user when they upgrade from the free version to the paid version. So if it is hard to demonstrate the value in the additional functionality, well, you run the risk of getting stuck with a large user base with really no revenues. So the message here is to be very careful how you segment your functionality between free and paid for. LinkedIn, Skype, Adobe Acrobat, right, can also be thought of in this model. The ability to create documents with Adobe Acrobat is like a premium feature, while being able to consume that document, right, with the Adobe Reader is free. And the wide adoption of the free reader really incents the adoption of the premium feature, which is to create documents to begin with. So I think that's a very valuable, easy to understand model in the freemium. The second model to explore is really feature limited, limiting the features with a relatively low cost of barrier to entry for rapid customer growth. So when I say relative low cost barrier to entry, I mean relative to other available options. So if you are first to offer a SaaS solution in the market that has been traditionally served by on-premise solutions, then you can use the established market value as your entry point for that functionality to be able to set your own pricing, probably at a discount to incent people to come over. This will help you to emphasize the popular benefits of SaaS to the customer, right? Time to value, maybe some lower upfront costs for deployment, less commitment, etc. So this approach really is clearly not a new approach to selling software, but there are some key differences to consider. So in my view, this model is better suited for situations where there isn't a significant benefit from having a community or collaborative type user base to drive the success of your business, like the previous. So services which aren't driven by a marketplace or community, or like a collaborative component, will benefit less from the freemium model. Additionally, the freemium model implies that you can handle the costs of delivering a free service and scale, which really isn't always the case for most people. So using instead this model, you will incent customers to move to higher price points, longer-term commitments, and the like based on how you package and price your capabilities. So I really recommend focusing your limited features, though, on solving narrower use cases and enticing them to upgrade to a broader set of functionality for a premium price. Salesforce is really a good, Salesforce.com is really a good example of this, which has consistently done a good job with this in their entry-level offering, right? With revenue growth coming in from organizations both to increase the number of users using it, as well as moving up to higher priced editions with a greater feature set. Okay, so now what I consider to be really one of the most attractive models is the pay-as-you-grow model. This is a usage-based or transaction-based model where customers only pay for what they use with no recurring or base fees. This model really allows for the most dynamic flexibility for customers and really ties back to the value that they're getting from the system. They're not purchasing unused value. This enables customers to take on very little upfront risk, meeting the objectives of why customers are purchasing services over installed products in the first place. Though pricing on a per unit basis is typically higher than your fixed or tiered plans so as not to erode the revenue for the software publisher. So for services with value closely tied to usage, like maybe Amazon AWS or the typical pay-per-view movies, or even maybe the amount of electricity, right, sent to your house, for example, the pay-as-you-grow or metered use models can be very desirable to grow your customer base. And once your customers become accustomed to your offerings as a service and develop a consistent baseline of usage, there are then the opportunities to grow your revenues by increasing the functionality set and reducing the potential variability of revenues. All right. The next challenge to focus on was really the automating, provisioning, the ordering, and upselling process. So we looked at which ways are common ways to sell your product that you offer. Now let's look at automation. This is a critical area if you want to be successful in the cloud. And there's really three reasons why this is so important. The first is being an expectation of an improved customer experience, right? It's all about customer experience. It's the same reason why iPad, for example, is popular among executives, or why employees are trying to convince IT departments to let them bring their iPhones to work. Customers and users alike really want a stellar user experience, and this is really only achieved through automation. The second reason to achieve automation is that services are always on, right? So when delivering services, a key difference from packaged products is that you are essentially always connected to your customer, which means they could request service upgrades, trial requests, etc., right, at any time. And through automation, you can enable your customers to consume whatever they want when they desire it, completely removing the sales friction that you are so accustomed to in the on-premise sales cycle. All right, the third option and most obvious goal is to increase efficiency and thereby reducing your costs. The old age reason to automate really doesn't go away. Why not become more efficient, reduce the staff needed to support the customer acquisition, and reduce errors all in the process, which then, again, reinforces the overall customer experience while saving you money. So I was speaking really just the other day to a global service provider who is selling in a postpaid usage model to their customer base. They are monetizing their solution really around feature usage, how much time a given feature was used by the end users of the system. For this service, they spend 3 man days, just to create one invoice for one customer. And they bill their customers quarterly. So they really realize the need for automation, this process, to enable them to continue to grow and reduce the growing staff just to create invoices for their customers, which of course was the reason they were talking to us and now investing in a cloud licensing system. So in this last slide, right, I ended it by talking about really a cloud system. So I realized maybe not everybody on the phone really understands what a cloud system licensing system means, or what does licensing mean and how does it work. So I just wanted to take a moment to give you a better idea of what the flow of licensing is and what value does it bring to you. So in a typical sale, right, you have your web, you have your partner, you have your channel, you fax, whatever, are creating a sale, creating that order that's flowing to your SAP system. Well, the next step is, of course, you need to provision, right, the authorization to use the system. So now this company purchased something from you, so you have to allow them to access it, create the product, install, configure, and create the rights for that product to a licensing system. That licensing system really enables your application to control that user or that customer to use the application as per how they purchased the service through the contract. Also, that customer, that same very customer who's using your service, can use that licensing to understand where in the field of time they are in their contract terms. Are they 30 days away from expiring? Are they 100 uses away from their license being used up? How many times did they use the service this last month, so they can prepare for a bill, they can set expectations for what their bill is, right? A good licensing system delivers on the transparency required by a customer to understand where they are in their contract terms. Also, while using this system, a good licensing system will collect usage. What features are being used by whom and how often? So this licensing system is collecting and aggregating all this usage information in preparation for billing, and can pass that billing pass that usage information to SAP so that you can create appropriate post-paid business models. I'm going to explore this step further in the next very slide. But in addition to preparing that usage information for a bill, we also want to prepare that usage information for bettering our offering. Understanding, as I mentioned before, who's using the product, what are they using, how often are they using it, can only lend itself to help us build better products. So now let's look at the usage and the usage-based bill and how it can work integrated with SAP. So new orders will flow in from your sales and distribution model, and when that new order arrives, our Sentinel Cloud Connector will create the authorization rights for that user in the licensing system, as we saw on the previous slide. So now you want to invoice your customer, let's say monthly, right? The financial module can get detailed feature usage information from the licensing system through the integration. So let's say you have a service that every time you print a document, you charge the customer $1. Well, the Sentinel Cloud licensing system will pass the financial module, that customer ABC, right, use the print feature 100 times in the last billing period, and the invoice can be generated as normal. So the last aspect was making sure, right, as a goal, to avoid multiple back office systems. Introducing cloud-based services should not lend itself to creating new systems, new infrastructure to support both delivering your product as an on-premise installed application as well as a service-based offering, right? So there's two goals here. One, you want to, for the vendor, for the software publisher, you want to be able to centrally manage your contracts for multiple business lines. Those business lines that are cloud-based delivered and those business lines that are on-premise based delivered. You want to avoid the lost efficiencies of having multiple systems, multiple staff to support those systems. Data in disparate systems that look different, that are consumed differently, right? Creating invoices with data from an on-premise solution that's different than on the cloud solution will really create headaches for you. So for the end user, though, also having a simplified user experience with one asset manager, right, that says, even though you have purchased cloud-based services, you may have also delivered on-premise installed-based products to that very same customer. Having that customer have one view, one asset detail of what they purchased from you, regardless of the delivery model, really enhances their experience. And also, their ability to upgrade or downgrade services really becomes much smoother because they don't have to interface with multiple systems. So really summarizing that, right, is you really don't need to replace your ERP to get to the cloud. You can still manage your on-premise delivered applications with a service-based delivery by use of a cloud licensing system. So really, what are the benefits of Sentinel Cloud? I think this slide really goes back to those challenges that I early detailed, which really were addressed throughout, which is cloud licensing system really gives you service agreement compliance, right? Being able to control your application usage through licensing so that customers are using only what they purchase. Being able to create a very versatile product catalog, being able to sell in many different packages to many different verticals. Having the business agility to change those packaging over time without creating a new engineering development cycle. Having the right building blocks of sophisticated licensing models to be able to sell to your customers in the different verticals in your customers in many different ways. Having the right tools to collect the business intelligence to improve your product over time. And having a central license management that can manage both applications delivered on-premise, installed, as well as services from a single operational system. Really, my marketing team would kill me if I didn't go through this one slide, which is, this is our one-slide marketing slide on Sentinel Cloud Services. We really see it as it's a feature-based user provisioning, authorization, metering, and management solution for SaaS. We really see this matching the software development lifecycle, where you first are going to define your product catalog, define how you want to sell it, what license models you want to sell it, what packages you want to sell it in. Provisioning those authorizations to those who you sell it, creating entitlements and contracts for those users, having the control inside the application itself to control users to what they've purchased, having the tools to measure the service, measure the feature usage for both post-paid billing as well as business intelligence, and being able to adapt your catalog over time without the need to change any source code of your application itself.